Welcome again to my channel, dear brothers and sisters on the spiritual paths. I hope that you had a wonderful celebration of New Year 2021. The students of the Ascended Masters usually greet the New Year with attunement with their I Am Presence, in line with past dictation, urging such attunement to be present instead of reveling in human consciousness. The students normally submit their petitions written on a piece of paper, addressed to the great karmic boards, who are said to be physically present during the hours of coming New Year. The letters of petitions are placed in a chalice before the altar and to be burned after the service. Surely, those students have been blessed and graced by the Lords of Karma during the related ritual. I hope that the mental body of the world and the light bearers out there have been influenced and affected by such blessed activities of the Ascended Master communities. May this new year be one of good cheer to us and foreshadows God's victory for the sons and daughters of God. Our discussion for today is about the topic of innocence dictated by Jesus. The innocence, as pointed out by Jesus in this lesson, is not the dictionary definition of lacking in experience or the state of being naive or gullible. It is rather closer to the other dictionary definition, which is being innocent or not guilty of a crime or wrongdoing. As defined by Jesus in this lesson, innocence is the inner sense of the little child, sensing the Spirit of God. It is the state of listening grace and attunement with the I Am Presence and Holy Christ plane, knowing in an instant what is right and wrong, having that Christ discernment and attunement with the divine will. As such, it is also a quality of non-condemnation. As can be seen here, there is a related biblical quote at the opening of the lesson from John chapter 3 verse 17. For God sent not his Son into the world to condemn the world, but that the world through him might be saved. So, non-condemnation is the quality of the Christ, and this is evidently illustrated in another New Testament account in John chapter 8 verse 11. In this account, a woman caught in the act of adultery was brought to Jesus by the Pharisees before the eyes of multitudes and asked Jesus what he has to say when the law of Moses commanded to stone such woman. They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and started to write on the ground with his finger. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let any one of you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." Then again he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Then Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. "Then neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Go now and sin no more." This quality of non-condemnation, as exemplified by Jesus, is something that we need to cultivate. As described here, even sinners must not be condemned and to be forgiven. I think this is because everyone has committed sins, and many times those were done because the individual was still under the strong grip or shackle of his or her negative momentum, which cannot be removed so easily. Or sometimes a sin was done almost unawares because of these human imperfections and weaknesses that is yet to be transformed. And I think even the so-called evildoers, the wicked ones, or fallen ones if you will, cannot simply be condemned even if they have committed sins or heinous crimes out of their free will choice. This is because God respects free will. God surely does not hate them, even if they have decided to take the left-handed path. In this case, neither should we hate and condemn them if we are to become one with God. Of course, it is to be understood here that there is an established impersonal cosmic law that God has instituted in His creation that brings order to universe or universes. It is this impersonal light of the cosmic law that will condemn those who willingly follow the darkness. Indeed, they are already condemned by their unbelief and their own choice of refusing to follow the light of the Holy Christ Self, the only begotten Son of God, as indicated in John chapter 3 verse 18. So, at a personal level, we don't condemn anyone, including the evildoers. However, this does not mean that we will just allow them to do their thing. We could get karma for not doing anything while we see crimes, chaos and disorder in our society, world community, and offenses in our personal lives. This is the reason why we, the Ascended Master communities, are giving our calls for exposure and judgment of all that is not of the light. But we do it without any hatred and condemnation. Remember that it is the evil deeds, the misqualified energies that we hate and shun, not the person. Whether we curtail the negative forces in our altar by giving our dynamic decrees, or at the front lines like the well-meaning law enforcers apprehending the offenders, or a simple contribution by good ordinary citizens, we do it because we are playing our role as sons and daughters of God, simply doing our duty to advance the light of God. Let us therefore cultivate non-condemnation and holy innocence. I would like to add that there are some negative traits that usually accompanies condemnation that you may not be aware of, and those are criticism and judgment. When a person has a habit of criticizing others' faults, almost unnoticeably comes condemnation next, and then judgment. These three are identified and called as CCJ in Ascended Master's teachings, an abbreviation for criticism, condemnation, and judgment. These CCJ are to be avoided by the students on their spiritual paths. Sometimes you may hear dictations by the Ascended Masters that seem to indicate criticism of some sort, but this is not so, as explained by Jesus here. The message of the Holy Christ Self does not bespeak condemnation, blessed ones. If sometimes you read into our messages what may seem to be criticism of human qualities, bear in mind that we are essaying to develop in you Christ's discrimination, whereby you can learn to choose the best and highest alternative, not by trial and error, but by attunement with the will of God. You must be God-taught what is right and wrong in order to claim victoriously as God's children your rightful heritage, a culture of the Spirit where you can make right choices because you have learned to distinguish between what is constructive and what is destructive to your divine plan, what is helpful to the soul's recreative process, and what is distressful and detrimental to the immediate or future endeavor. It might come to your mind an account in the New Testament where Jesus denounced the Pharisees and Sadducees during one of their encounters that seemed to be an exhibition of condemnation. I believe that in this account, Jesus is simply revealing the truth concerning the true nature of the Pharisees and Sadducees as seen by Jesus' inner spiritual eye. To give another example, if a parent is pointing out a mistake of a son or daughter with a view of correcting him or her out of deep concern, love, and care, that cannot be considered criticism. And when the parent points out a mistake, it is simply said as a statement of fact of what had truly happened without intention of offending the person. In comparison, an apparent criticism, condemnation, and judgment is often directed at the receiver for the purpose of deprecating, perhaps born out of competition or professional and political jealousy, or perhaps because it simply doesn't measure up to one's own perceived standard. Just to tell you that the Ascended Masters are really admonishing us to avoid CCJ, Saint Germain, I remember, has even stated that there is no such thing as constructive criticism. Perhaps this is to correct some people who justify their habit of criticisms, thinking that it can be constructive and can challenge the other person to aspire higher. But if you really want people to come up higher, it is better to accentuate their positives and praise them more often for their good performance, and you will often find their improvements the next time around. As one Ascended Master said, praising results in racing. I'd like to end the discussion by a quote from Jesus in this lesson. If you will assiduously exercise attunement with your I Am presence and discrimination through your Christ self, you will increase your inner sense of the divine will, as well as your discernment of what is right or wrong for you, as you follow the path of the ministering servant. Thank you, everyone, and God bless.